Hello, everyone. Welcome to an all new episode of the Indic Explorer Show. I'm your host, Vineet. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Uh, Paytm recently fired al- almost close to 1,000 professionals because they wanted to bring in AI and they felt that AI could replace a lot of people. Google has also been planning to do the same, and a lot of big tech companies are now moving towards AI both globally and in India. With this particular trend that is being seen in the corporate world, everybody is worried in terms of what will happen to their jobs, what about ethics of using AI, how will AI actually transform the world. So, to kind of demystify the landscape for artificial intelligence, especially with regards to India, as well as more importantly, to understand the policy framework that could come up in terms of regulations, I have with me a very special guest today for the second time on the Indic Explorer show, Abhivardhan from the Bharat Pacific. Welcome to the show. Namaste, Abhivardhan.
Namaste, and it's a pleasure to be in the show. Let's take it forward.
So, Abhivardhan, before we get into the policy aspects of AI, can you just give an overarching framework of the AI landscape in India?
So, to be fair, the AI landscape in India is ever growing, and the best way to put is that in the age and the times that we see in China and Western countries, that either we have too much maximalist regulations and at the same time a set of technology which is very invasive and too much hardcore with no investment related return of income. I think AI in India could be developed with the hope that some sustainable business use cases could come in. So, at the same time, while we are not too much edgy about regulation, we are at least resilient about the fact that we can come up with some very good products and services where we can use AI for social good, for business good, and otherwise. I think that's the overarching reality right now. But yes, we need to improve. We need to see how we can do better than other countries for both the private sector and the government. So yeah.
So, can you just explain the value chain in terms of the AI provider, the business, like how, what's the entire ecosystem of artificial intelligence?
So to begin with, let us say you have a set of people who are data scientists and developers who develop an AI system using machine learning. All AI systems are developed through machine learning techniques. When we say AI, it's a very oxymoronic term because what is AI? I mean, nothing is AI in certain ways because AI means something which is artificially intelligent. But again, it's a very theoretical construct because it is yet to get practical. So, in my view, when we say AI, we say it in a very colloquial sense, right? Like, and that is the thing. So, when machine learning techniques are developed, they are developed by training data, and outputs are checked if these outputs are working fine. That's at the level of development, or what we also call as research and development. That happens in any industry where AI is being developed or any digital tech is being developed. Now, AI is a digital tech. It's a disruptive tech. Now, once this technology is developed, of course, the data that is taken, the whole ecosystem regarding it, businesses are then involved in democratizing it. Now, you can do it in three ways, any of the three ways. First, either it is a product, which is to say, you're selling it like a service product, like a Chat GPT 4 or Perplexity paid version, or it could be just like a service which could be offered on a social media platform like Instagram. If for example, any song of the film, I'm just taking the name of a film, okay, let us say Animal or KGF, or I don't know, some Hollywood movie like Spider-Verse or anything, Oppenheimer, any song of Oppenheimer gets viral, you can use the same Oppenheimer song and you can get so many reels on Oppenheimer. But the reason you get it is because of the recommendation algorithm, which is an AI system as a service which you are getting through Instagram, because Instagram does it and it earns money through ads. We all know it. YouTube earns through ads. You don't need to pay a subscription fee to any of these social media platforms for sure, except of course Twitter or X, which has X Premium. and now even Instagram has their own verified badge and all those things. But when you develop an AI, you market it. The third way could be a system. So the first was product. I told you that you have a tangible thing. A subscription based model is a different thing. It could be a one time product as well. Sometimes, for example, in India, there are some text to speech tools which you can take like at 800 rupees, which is a one time cost, or I don't know, 5,000 rupees one time cost. And you can make a lot of text based audios which are in Korean accent, Singaporean accent, Chinese accent, Marathi accent, not that diverse like a Bombay accent and all that, but like Indian accent, American accent, British accent, and so forth. So that is the product. A system could be more deeper, which is to say, like governance, which is to say, in internal workings of a company, you're processing some data and using algorithms to show some analytics and data based predictions that this is what it is. So analytics as a form of system could also be provided. It could be a service as well. That's paradoxical, but in a simple granular term, in simple terms, product or service is the best classification. Third is service, which is like a SaaS, software as a service. But when you go for product development, research, what's the next stage? The next stage is marketing, which is to say you have your own clients, whether it is your customers buying a subscription, or the government, or the companies. So that's how the general AI ecosystem works. But in certain cases where it is not digital, where you don't just have to code, robotics could also be involved. So it gets into the electronic sector, which is to say for factories, you are having some robots which are creating cars and all that stuff. So that is a different thing altogether. But that's a general understanding of your audience as to what is an AI ecosystem per se.
So now, so basically, you're saying there's a technical part, there is product, service, and systems. Now, how do you think? So, when an AI system is developed, a product suite is developed, uh, how is what is the go-to market? How is it? How is it provided? How are the services or the products deployed to the market? And what are the direct outcomes? So I know for a fact that okay, certain people will lose jobs, but will it also help in creating other jobs, and is that a net positive? I know it's a very broad question, but do you see that being a net positive by creating other jobs?
So first of all, let's be honest. I don't buy this nonsense. I'm not from you, by the way, but from the so-called industry. And people say it every single day. AI is taking away jobs. It's not happening. For example, there was a paper by OpenAI researchers, and the reason I said nonsense is simply because what happens is many people do not even know if an AI is going to take away job. So what's happening is that, for example, you have a job of a content writer. Okay. Now, a content writer job is definitely not comparable to a securities lawyer, or the job of a doctor who's a surgeon or a physician, right? You These income gaps and even the way these work are very different. Now, where actually could happen, what could happen is the real narrative should have been that AI will not take away your jobs, but AI can definitely make you incompetent to do these jobs. Which is to say that if you're not having human intervention, you can't use these AI tools effectively. Yes, you can try to automate certain things that can work in factories, that can work for robotics, but even in that case, you need human intervention at certain level. For example, you need a developer to ensure that the coding errors are manually handled. Then, if you're doing it in a factory where car manufacturing has happened, you need to ensure that somebody is taking care for manual help, and that you don't need like a normal worker. You need a specialist who understands automation in certain things. Even in aviation, if you automate, you would need it. You can't just replace pilots, whose anyways the cost of becoming a pilot in any country including India is huge. um, let us take a very fantastic example, a funny example. Let us say we replace F1 racers with AI. I mean, you can do that. You already have automotive cars, but the sport itself will lose its sheen. It will not be a sport. It will be like a game, like automating it and just ensuring it. So there's it's about a sense of value, whether AI is going to take away jobs. So that is one part of it. Sorry for being provocative, just trying to be make the more topic interesting. But anyways, now the important part. When you talk about uh, what kind of industry it goes into, how it is, reached out to the people, I think the best answer to that is, whenever people say it's an AI industry, it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like, okay, I'll give you a simple example. Notebooks, right? Notebooks, pens, all the stationery stuff. What kind of industry would that be? Now, technically, if I would say for a work profession aspect, it could be used in every industry. Lawyers need it, doctors need it, you need it, I need it, everyone needs it, right? So the use of AI is multi-industry, number one. So while there is an industry sector which is AI based, like there could be an industry sector based on solar, on which Adani is working pretty fine, the Adani group, or there could be an industry sector on biotech, medical tech. And then the difference is that unlike satellites or space tech or solar, the AI industry sector is everywhere in as many industries wherever possible. So if you need a marketing tool, you have certain products and companies. If you need something for podcasting or dubbing or video editing, then you have another creative industry. If you need for video generation, audio generation, all that AI generative stuff, generative AI, which is text based, there's a completely different industry for that. Or let us say sector, not say industry. It's a very oxymoronic term. It gets very confusing. So I'll say that there's an industry, creative industry, graphics industry, but then there is an industry sector as well. So AI industry, better it is to say that it's an industry sector, and then we say that across various industries, it actually could be helpful. It could be anything. It could be space, it could be agriculture. For example, you have drones which are analyzing if your crops have been given effectively, the necessities like fertilizer and all that stuff. There are already some AI startups in India working on that, right? So that is the way I think we should look at how does it get to the market effectively. I hope that that juxtaposition kind of helps.
So, will there be, like I said, net creation of jobs or will it be equal? I'll tell you why. Because in the framing of your answer, it seems like, let's say that I'm a sales executive. There is a sales team, I'm a sales manager, and there are four sales executives reporting into me. I will not be replaced because I am a filter, not just of people, but even when using AI. But the people who are reporting to me, they are replaceable. So you need more skills in the value chain. The higher you are, the less likely it is to replace you. Correct me on this if I'm not getting it right. That is one. Second, will it create new jobs? For example, the kind of jobs that I can see getting created is AI itself has to be sold. So it will need salespeople. AI itself has to be implemented as a system. So will it need consultants who come and ask you, what is your business problem? We'll come and solve it. Right? So if I look at it from this holistic perspective, uh, is it going to be a net positive in terms of jobs, or is it going to be net negative? Net, I mean, not absolute, or will it be just zero? So that I would like to know.
So first of all, I appreciate the way you made the analogies, and I must say that the analogies are correct because that's how it works. For example, in sales, I mean, you can replace how skills are performed, but who is going to perform it? Complete AI intervention, we are not at that level right now. Because what happens is that millions of dollars are invested in these tools, but outcomes have to come in, profitability has to come in. Because see, what's happening is, um, in generative AI, for example, a chat bot was created kind of like chat gpt, and nearly 110 or 100 million US dollars was spent. That's a huge amount of money. Okay, now you use all that money, you create an AI tool, it turns out to be a toy, it doesn't work for 6 months. Sorry, after 6 months or 12 months, it just gets into a situation of what we call as garbage in, garbage out, which is to say that the kind of output it gives, they are not industry wise sustainable. It's like you're using any platform. and you're expecting that platform to work commonsensically every single day. And turns out that there are some weird glitches which happen, like Twitter getting malfunctioned. Everyone complains on social media about X, that Elon Musk is not fixing X, this algorithm is not working well, my likes are getting diminished, my reactions are getting diminished. You will complain, right? So the same applies to AI. When you if you as a customer or a client or a government are using an AI tool, and it turns out that using the AI tool does not give you the satisfaction from an industry level, because it has to be standardized, right? If you have a pen, manufacturing a pen, you need to ensure it works every day. You need to sign, you need to write. If you have a keyboard, you're buying a keyboard for your laptop or your PC, you need to ensure that you need to be sure that the keyboard works for you. Same for a microphone, same for an iPhone, same for a I don't know, Android phone or something like that. So anything which is a product or a service, it has to be consistent. If these tools lose consistency in 6 to 12 months, it means that the investment was not done properly, and the coding had issues, and it was just hogwash. So I think this is a concern. And I'm not saying that every AI company is doing that, by the way. There are some companies which are trying their best. There's some companies which are failing. Some might have malicious intent, some might not have malicious intent, right? It's an industry game. In the digital tech, this happens. But we need to recognize the failures and the successes and the limitations of the AI sector, that it will grow, but it will not grow like everyone thinks it to be. So yes, your analogies are correct. I completely agree with them. In marketing, it's already happening. Not automation, but having an edge. Basically, in advertisements, in short form content, in any sort of SEOs, search engine optimization, all of these things, AI enabled marketing is already happening. I think some smart marketeers who are working for their clients as freelancers are already using it. So in marketing, it's already there. In fact, there was a presentation by a person from Flipkart, which was done by an event by Carnegie. People should look at it. He deliberately told that how Flipkart and other companies are using generative AI in marketing. Stable use cases, not some hype or hogwash like robot is taking away the world or something like that, but like practical stuff, basic things, subtitles, or sometimes even for example, if I don't know how to speak Kannada or Tamil or Japanese, the AI tool can actually even lip sync it and translate it for the viewers with the same audio tone which I have. So, bingo, you see, an AI use.
So would you say it's a net positive
I
in terms
would
of
not say it's
jobs?
a net negative. It can't be. But a net positive is also not expected. It's kind of like a stagnated situation. We have to see how that leads to more productivity, because see, what happens is that all these surveys come from business companies and consulting firms like McKinsey. But these surveys, whenever they say, see, the point is they take surveys from the executives and the managers and those kind of people, and they give their insights. Now if you will ask somebody in the AI industry or anyone about the impact of AI, they will definitely say, oh, yeah, yeah, it's going well. At the same time, you are asking them a question: are you afraid of regulators coming up with new laws on AI? They will definitely say yes, because both of them see what's happening. Very simple. If you are hyping something up, the government will be concerned. Any government, not just India, any government. So they will also come up with heavy regulations and big bold statements in media that, oh, we are going to come up with a regulation. So I think what happening is, it's neither a net positive nor a net negative. It's like a stagnated situation, not a stagflation either. It's kind of a stagnated situation where certain sectors are having a net positive due to use of AI. But again, that is not industry wide at a very large scale. We need to have that at the large scale. And once we have that, then I think an AI revolution is definitely happening. But for that, businesses need to be very, very honest with their VCs, and the VCs and the investors also have to be honest as to where they wish to invest, and you know, hype needs to be avoided. I think that way it should work out. So yeah.
So, in terms of skills, in a very sophisticated AI economy of the future, and I'm hoping that India also becomes one like that, what skills will be at a premium for working professionals? How can they equip themselves with new skills that can, help them cater to an AI economy? So, what will they have to focus themselves on?
Excellent question. So the first answer to that question is let's address the question in the most raw form. When you say that, how should be one prepared to an AI economy? Of course, I've answered the question whether an AI economy exists. It exists. So first of all, we need to see if using an AI or not using an AI has an economic impact, positive or negative or not. If there is, I'm assuming there is, then again at a sector specific level you need to mobilize yourself and understand which tools works for you and which tool is a waste of time for you. If you are in marketing, you need an AI tool because a lot of people are hyping the same stuff in every sector, not just policy or tech or any other common narrative like cinema or national security news. And because there's a data survey which shows that certain linguistic audiences in India view certain kind of content a lot, right? Like for the Malayali audience, it is foreign and international news, while for the rest of India, like Marathi, Hindi, Kannada, everyone is interested in national security news or cinema or entertainment news or crime thrillers. So in any industry, wherever you are doing digital marketing or even physical marketing, if you're using AI, you need to be very very specific about the economics and the time that it would take to use it and ensure that it gives you some profits or any help, or even in employment it gives you leads, it helps you grow in a work environment. So in specific sectors, it I would be more happy to answer the question, but since the question was generalized, I tried to make it in a structure for you. So yeah.
Maybe let's say two places actually, services and
Okay.
manufacturing. What skills can, how can they be developed, or what skills would be at a premium in such an economy?
Let's take manufacturing. Okay, so everybody talks about services. Let's take manufacturing first. Okay, so manufacturing in the automobile sector, let us say that that cars also have to go through their stress tests, right? That bang thing that happens. They have to go through so that we know if the airbags are gushing out, if it's working out for the consumer who's buying it. There are safety mechanisms or not. How is the arrangement and the assembly of the vehicle is done. But even there, when you're manufacturing a car, you can enable the use of robots in certain ways. I think that's already happening, some factory robots. But even in that level, you can have some advanced level AI robots, which could actually be helpful, which is based on their mechanics and kinetics. So that is one way. Now, who will be controlling it? Of course, you will not let an AI completely do it, but at some level, there will be some form of effective control for a worker. So definitely you would have to understand as an engineer, because not a degree wala engineer, you don't necessarily need a degree. But if you understand automations, you have a degree, then obviously great. At whatever level, at a worker level, at a manager level, at an executive level, you need to at least know how it is working, so that you have certain measures from a coding perspective, from a mechanics perspective, to overcome any problems that the machine goes through, right? So automation may help you in that way. Now in generative AI, there was a thing which was told, and I'll tell you, and I'll ask you if you find it interesting or not. Okay. So okay, I told you about the stress test, right? The cars hitting through and getting their edge, so that we know if they're working well or not, if they're safe or not. What if I told you that a car manufacturer is replacing this process with something like, okay, we are using a generative AI tool which is using predictive analytics, simply speaking, recording a video of a car, not going through a stress test, but recording the whole specifics of the car, particulars of the car, and then using the physical features merely. The generative AI tool using the algorithms is telling you how much safe it is, and if it is hit, how much damage could happen. Would you still rely to a physical process as a customer? Okay, answer me in two ways. Okay, would you still rely on a generative AI or a physical process as a customer, and definitely as somebody running that same company? Tell me, just think about it hypothetically.
So yeah. So the way I would think about it is that I would have a migration process. I would start with doing both. And once having done enough sample sets to see that the results between one, that is the offline version, and the AI version are matching, let's say, over a certain finite number of samples, I will move to the non physical, that is the full AI version. So there'll be a period or buffer period to migrate before I eventually, with the system verified, I'll move fully there.
Correct. So that will only happen after a lot of iterations, when we are sure that we don't need to do physical tests
Correct.
and we know that the assembly itself is working out. Now that itself is a very sophisticated
Yeah.
process. You get the you understand, right? It's so sophisticated, it will take time, but even when you do it, the iterations are long, and there's a whole sophisticated knowledge that is also involved, the know-how, which happens in technology transfers, right? Even in defense tech that happens, but I'll not talk about defense tech because I'm not good at defense tech at all. I think my friend Krishnan on X is more capable than me on defense tech. I'm not. So technically, this
Okay.
is how it happens in the manufacturing. It there are costs involved. Of course, it will be costly, a lot of iterations and risk. Now that's in the manufacturing side. Now let's get digital. Let's talk about services. Yeah.
Services?
Netflix, yeah.
Services.
So
Yeah.
now Netflix gets mad. Okay, it uses. I mean, I think it uses algorithms. I'm not so sure about it. It uses algorithms and recommends you n number of movies because Netflix has a very huge library of movies and shows and content, and you just go through the sea of that content and try to find what your niche based on genre and recommend. But what Netflix does now is, for example, hypothetically, it uses the recommendation algorithm, and based on certain keywords of your choice, it just tells you certain things in connection. Like for example, even on X it happens, Twitter. You start searching about something like you start searching about, for example, a historical monument in India or Europe or China or anywhere. Okay, if you search about a historical monument, you will get something related to history, a tweet or post related to history, or a post related to art or antiquity. All those content creators exist who talk about this thing on Instagram, on YouTube, and X. There's an account called the Cultural Vids or Cultural. I don't remember the account. It's a very good account which posts on Roman culture, Roman monuments, Italian monuments. So if you search about Italian monuments, you'll get a lot of architecture related posts. But sometimes also what happens, you get also certain posts which are related to, I don't know. It starts from architecture, it goes to food, then it goes to politics. And you're like, okay, I started from architecture. I went to Italian food. And because of Italian food, I went into European Union politics. Now, even in India, this could happen. In the Indian case, you start with you start with some media controversy related to a startup, which is reported, a tech startup. When you talk about it, you will get some news about edtech, and then from edtech it goes to employability issues, and then from there it goes to student politics, and you're like, I started at a tech startup on X and I went to student politics and all that stuff related to it in this country. So you that's how the Twitter algorithm works. It's a very funny algorithm. I can tell you in literature also. So I think that's the way we should look at it. I hope that answers your question.
No, so in terms of services specifically, if you, what do you see it replacing? Like, how do you see it getting deployed?
Marketing, definitely it's happening. You can use those text based tools or visual tools, or you can create gifs or memes and all that kind of stuff. That's the marketing and creative industry, entertainment industry also, because in India, for example, the advertising, marketing and entertainment industry are all but one thing. In America and other countries it's different. In China it's obviously one because of state control. In India it is together because of industry feudalization, which is to say that our industry itself at a big level, from the cinemas to the shows to the OTTs, are they have a hubris of controlling things in a very weird way. But that's because of the nature of a set of stakeholders. That does not mean there is no free market in India. There is free market, but the situation is that the audiences need to be more informed, and they need to have a more catered approach. But it works in India as well. I mean, there are podcasters and there are content creators who are independently doing pretty well with support and everything. So marketing, creative, advertising, Thumbs up. Uh, Agriculture, yes. In a form like, of course, I'm not talking about tractors and physical equipment. I'm talking about service. So let us say space tech satellites, or let us say drones. In a service component, they can actually use the camera they have to understand any health of a crop, कि इसमें खाद नहीं है कि नहीं, you have put some fertilizers or not, whether it is infected with something, if it is infected, and what it is exactly, and what you can exactly do to fix it. Because a lot of farmers are uninformed. They do not have the resources to understand. Poverty is an issue still with farmers across the country, especially in Maharashtra and a lot of states which are affected. I mean, Uttar Pradesh is still doing fine, but other states have their own issues. So agriculture, definitely. uh, in law also, in legal management, for example, you have to assort case laws and find out which case law works for you. You need certain keywords in law to understand. There's a wholesome industry for that in legal tech. But I think the use of AI has still not proven well for law firms that much, because their complaint is rightful that these tools are so useless, they can't help me in a court case. I can just use it for my research paper, but I can't use it for a case law, because that's not how you argue in a court. The simple example I'll give you, for example, if you argue something in an executive body like income tax department about a clause, you argue on a logic that this is the administrative provision. Just to say, ये आपने लिखा है, you have written this, therefore this is it, this is the analogy, therefore I am asking for refund for this on the IT portal. Now, when you go to a court, when you argue something, and I'm not getting on useless constitutional law issues, because in constitutional law, everyone gets political, whether in this is not a part of India and this is part of India, all that nonsense which happened in the 370 case. So I'm not getting on that. But if you go to real legal issues, commercial issues, or administrative law issues, like appointment of a professor in a government university, okay, for example, a notification has come in, and then you have to say that the notification has to be proven, and the notification is invalid, therefore the appointment is not valid of the person. Even in the court, if there is a case law which says that no, even if it is even the appointment order is scrapped, the appointment of the person will not be removed, then you have to find that case law for that high court. And again, it will not work for every institution. Sometimes it may be a government university for law, it may be a government university for medical, it could be an IIT, it depends. So you need a specific case law. A case law is also like a commandment kind of a thing. You get my point. So for lawyers, it's in law, it's being tried, but it's not working at a mass level. Some top players are using it, for sure, but yeah, marketing, agriculture for sure, governance, Aadhaar and all, you can use it in digital public infrastructure. Um, Manufacturing, I told you, robotics and all, the costs are involved, but you can do it in automobiles, you can do it in others. Space tech for sure,
Right.
spectrum for sure, telecom. So I think this is how it could be. Yeah.
So interesting. Actually, largely, there's also this talk that certain businesses, like for example, event management, right, which is like highly offline, right? It's not online because you have networks and things like that. Those kind of businesses are the ones which will not be affected by AI. Or for that matter, you can say even the construction industry, matlab, where everything is built kind of offline. Everything is offline. So it's the online world where it can help you scale up faster. And the other interesting trend that I find is creative professions are the ones which will get displaced. Although intuitively one would have thought that mathematical and scientific professions, which have a certain logical flow, decision control, there is no subjectivity in them. It's very objective. So one would have thought AI would replace those first, but it seems like it is the subjective arenas where AI actually seems to be getting faster and quicker, which is quite interesting. I mean, what do you think about that?
Yeah, so if you read that paper by OpenAI, it even says the same thing, that subjective professions in creative and others are being replaced. And I think that has to do with the quality of work. For example, if I have to, for example, okay, I'll tell you, if I have to write a contract, okay, I will do it. I have no issues. But an AI could also do it. And if an AI can do it, then I need to have the knowledge of law to use that AI tool in a way to get the outcome. But you need to have the knowledge of law, which means that if you don't have the knowledge, first of all, your prompt will be useless. And number two, the chat GPT or whatever tool it is, it will give you the garbage that you deserve because you can't understand the field itself. So the outcome is anyways useless to you. So what happens is that we need to obviously use the processing capabilities of AI, the computational capabilities, and I agree with you that on maths it's not happened, and the reason it has not happened is because in theoretical professions in mathematics and physics, uh, there are human elements to an aspect of trust. You need to trust people. At the same time, you need to ensure that in science and mathematics and physics, um, AI can do some deductions and tell you. Of course, I mean there are some amazing. That's how quantum computing came into be, right? At some level, but frankly speaking, I think the issue is that in compute just because you have computing abilities does not mean you are chiseled way better. It's a simple example is you have a metal. You say, oh, it's a great metal, I can make a katana out of it. Katana is like one of the most, you know, um, fiercest knives and yeah, swords in Japanese culture, Japanese history. Now you're taking just a normal metal outside a factory which is just remains of something like a trash, metal trash. And you're saying, okay, I'll chisel it and I'll make a katana. It might be effective, but it might not be equal to a katana, right? So whatever you have, you need to chisel it. You need to have an instrument which works for you in specific cases. And obviously there is cost involved. Sometimes if it gets at a larger level, then the cost is very less relatively. That's the economics, right? Economics of scale. That's the same problem with AI. You are using AI, fine, but you need to have the knowledge to correct it, to unwrong it, or to ensure that the mess doesn't come to you and the use cases work for you. So in certain cases it's working fine.
Which is very interesting. So people have to actually, many people would think that, you know, you have to probably learn less because AI will do more. But in fact, you need to learn a lot more for AI to do more for you. And I'll give you an example. When I gave some prompts to AI to write a script, right? Uh, when I just gave basic prompts कि ये genre का एक script लिखना है मुझे, short story, and this is the theme, these are the main characters, लिख दो. Story didn't have that meat, it didn't have that quality. But when I gave a few pages of a detailed script, right, of 4 to 5 pages, it bettered it like anything. Like it just took that script and added fine nuances, which with a basic prompt, right, it would not have been able to do at all. But I reached somewhere 70-80% and it took it to the 100% level. So the outcome from AI is very important. If you give basic prompts, right, versus if you have done half finished, semi finished, or finished product, but it needs to kind of
You can
sort out
manually
those
do it, yeah.
loose edges, I see a huge difference in outcomes. So I don't think there is a, it's like, you know, जैसे industrial revolution में हुआ था कि if more machines come in, people will lose jobs. But that didn't actually happen. No, people just started moving up the value chain, like from agriculture to more industry process driven kind of corporate organizations. So I think that is how I see AI. It's not like because you started using calculators or MS Excel that you stopped learning mathematics. I mean,
Simple. Yeah,
right, I mean that's the most basic crude
yeah,
example
yeah,
that I could think of.
yeah.
But any so coming back to the crux of this issue, what are the ethical challenges with AI? What regulatory framework? I believe you're working on certain a policy regulatory bill, draft bill for the Indian government to kind of take it through and take, you know, regulate AI through its logical conclusions. So talk a little bit about these.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm glad that you brought the best analogy. Just because you use a calculator doesn't make you dumb. It just makes you smarter to do certain things. You need to understand what are you calculating. It's like, okay, I don't know the meaning of multiplication. I only know minus and plus. How does it work? Okay, yeah. Also, on your question on AI bill, yes, I have been working on an AI bill, and the version one was published on November 7th, which was even emailed and submitted to a secretary in the Ministry of IT. This was not a request from the government. We did it ourselves as a matter of good intent and in good faith for the benefit of the industry. Because my view was that I genuinely wanted us to have an AI regulation, and I'll give you a reason for it. Uh, I don't think we need regulation to control something like a big behemoth or a Godzilla of AI. We don't have a Godzilla of AI. Okay, we don't have that much of an issue like other countries. The issue we have is lack of standardization. And I'm not saying involve money or too much compliance into it. Don't do that. It will kill the industry before it even starts, but just come up with certain standards for certain cheaply available and cheaply exploitable AI solutions. That is something which this government has to care about before the Lok Sabha elections or after the Lok Sabha elections. Whenever they do, it is up to them, it is up to their wisdom and understanding. For example, there was a whole news about Kannada actress, her face getting deep faked by some model. I'll not name the person. And then, even the prime minister talked about it in some rally that I was so happy when somebody audio voiced my sound. And we know why, because of her meetings with the Italian prime minister and all that stuff. But that's a can of worms. I'm not opening it for you or anyone. We know what it means, the melody issue. So Modi said it that the prime minister said it that okay fine, you know, अच्छा लग रहा है देख के, बट ये बड़ा कंसर्निंग है कि भाई मेरी शक्ल और मेरी आवाज का डीप फेक बनाया जा रहा है. So it's a very serious issue. So even he is concerned. At a policy level, he understands. This is good. Even Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar and Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav understand that is perfectly fine. So see, of course, there's a way to solve it. Now, for a text-based content, I'll give you an example. Now, in the publication called The Intercept, a so-called international media like the NYT, they reported that Ambassador Quatra, who is the Foreign Secretary of India after Mr. Shringla in the G20 times he came in, he basically wrote a private note to all the embassies and consulates in the US of India about the Khalistani threat. Now, he said that a Pakistani journalist leaked it. Okay, and they claimed it. Okay, this is written by Mr. Quatra. The language is of Mr. Quatra. They've sent Khalistani elements and whatnot. Now, those who are journalists or humans, not the usual people in a certain set of circles, but a set of people who have covered Indian foreign policy for 30 years, despite their biases, even they said from India and in US, there are some people from ANI and other places, even they said this is fake because of the language that the Indian Foreign Service uses. Okay, now imagine that somebody who wanted to do this nonsense use chat GPT-4. I'm imagining it, I'm doing it for the audience. Okay, they thought, okay, this is how Ambassador Quatra might write. How does chat GPT know? You're guessing it, right? You might not be accurate. So of course, in the text based game, it's a lost game. You can't regulate effectively. You just need to have some human understanding of things. You can try to have some protections for publishers and who bloggers and all those people, but beyond that you can't. But even in that, I think we have suggested something in the AI bill about it. But for visual content, you can still do it very effectively. Actually do it because how? Huh.
Like how would there, like what, like how would there be like a watermark or some way to kind of have a stamp that this is deep fake, or is there a way to kind of systematize that?
That's an excellent question. So watermarking is something which I have covered in the bill, and the specific clause for that I think is I can't remember it, but it is, I think, related to. Okay, it's actually above. It's one of the chapters in the bill. Yeah. So I think this is okay. Got it. Yeah. So I think this is about. Okay, I'll look at it and let you know. I just can't remember the exact section. I think, yeah, it is, I think, section 10 or section 15 of the bill. So we had recommended that watermarking is possible. You can do it for visual content, audio, video, and pictures, graphics, even photos. And it's very simple. When the output is generated, at the time of generating the output, an AI company has to ensure to just put some noise, which could be done technologically. This does not by any means affect the quality of the output. But from an internal end, if an AI detection tool is used, the AI detection tool using the code or certain elements in the metadata will figure out, or even not metadata, because metadata also gets washed away. Any other element, it can figure it out that this is an AI generated output and something else is not. So that distinction in the audio, video, and visual segment could easily be done without any problem. Even in sound, it could be done. It's very easy for AI generated tools. I know Beethoven.ai. I know a lot of tools, so it's possible to be done. That's why watermarking is
So
possible.
tell me a little bit. So in an audio, you're saying there'll be a noise, but in case of text, it is harder. But in terms of image or video, what will be the watermark, the
No, no,
identifier?
no, no. So when I say noise, let's understand what is noise. Okay, I don't mean putting noise as in a kind of a sound thing. No, no,
Sound.
not that, not that. Noise is like a colloquial term I'm using. So, so noise and watermarking is like something which is an imperceptible variation in data, which holding the AI generated content, the variation in data. Okay, so it's form of a data variation, which could be which could be put up. It could be embedded with the artwork or any form of sound or any form of video. Now this could be a pattern itself. But even in sound, for example, if it is done, it doesn't need to be exactly something like an, because you can clip out the sound using sound engineering. You can do that. There are some amazing sound engineers in this country and across the world. That's a very thriving industry in content creation. So sound engineers can do it, but if you create a pattern, first of all, you can get it patented or copyrighted, or you can use a tracker to figure it out whether it is AI generated or not. Your work is done, you have the content, yet you can figure it out. That would be also in the industrial design science side, but I'll not confuse your viewers. I'll say copyright or patent. But yeah, it could actually be possibly done. Yeah.
So what about what are the other aspects of this regulatory bill? So one is your authorship and whether it is AI generated or human generated. What are the other ethical issues with regards to AI? Especially a place where I see a challenge is IP, because is a particular work a patent of a person, or is it just an output of an artificial intelligence tool? So whom does it belong to? Also, because AI relies on inputs that you give, right? The quality of the output. So let's say it is drawing inspiration from, let's say you're making a song out of AI, but it's drawing inspiration, let's say, from, suppose if someone is making a ghazal, it's going to draw inspiration from the hundreds of ghazals that have been put into it. So is there attribution to the original creator? There is one way of looking at it, that you it is of course coming from there. There is another way of looking at it, key, there is nothing original. Even human mind generates based on inputs that we have seen. Like if I am a ghazal writer or a singer, I have heard so many ghazals, but at the same time there are certain things that are completely new. So where does it draw the line? How does your regulatory recommendation, how is it going to handle this big challenge?
Now, to be very fair, uh, this is a very initial recommendation, but I'll answer your question for sure. When it comes to use of any content in generative AI, um, there are aspects which we have covered in the objective part in section 15. So um, one aspect is that, of course, there has to be a contract to ensure that it is tightly done without any complication in the first place. So contracts is one thing. We have suggested that in section 15, paragraph 2, per se. Another aspect which I have suggested is, you know, uh, uh, let us say, privacy and security. But I think the one problem we have is even we could not draft a suggestion on specific aspects of digital copyright, and I'll tell you why. But we may do it in part 2. We may do it in a version 2 of it for sure in the coming months. We will actually come up with a version 2. The reason it could not work out was because it could be done at a contractual level first, and the government should be the last to come in, because a restrictive approach could heavily affect the industry, even those stakeholders who are, capable enough to help out. So in my view, I think the best way that goes for this is that when you effectively take up the aspect of regulation. Okay, now you put it very nicely that a ghazal could have, or anything could have, its own creation. So the answer to that question is that the AI company should be attributed for that part where it has to do its own processing using the AI. Because a lot of money is spent on developing these models and maintaining them. And I think at that level of computation, the cost of computation itself has to be attributed to the company. Now, the one thing which all these music companies and all these people will say, oh, you have used my music. What about that? Correct. But what is the exact problem you're talking about? Because just because we have used it, what is the exact form of infringement are you asking about? Because that quantum has not been decided yet. For example, everyone,
How will that
yeah,
be decided, Abhivardhan? So how will that be decided whether this was 90% new and 10% inspired, and inspired from where? How will that? I
yeah,
mean, because in the human mind, you can't really do that, right? So how does that? How will that be attributed back? Even if you have to regulate it, I find that quite impossible, actually.
yeah. So in the case of text, I'll give you a funny example. So New York Times has sued OpenAI, which is an irony of its own. Now NYT sued them, and I have read their complaint, the submission to the court. They say that for the paywalled content of NYT articles, OpenAI has been leaking that content to the public, especially the ChatGPT paid version 4. Now, first of all, NYT's content is not of good quality. But let's talk about journalistic ethics and just a little bit talk about some rights to publishers. NYT has a point. But because if NYT loses, it of course creates a precedent in a bad way for other publishers. Even if you write a blog and that is paywall, that could be scraped by you know ChatGPT 4. So of course NYT has a point. But then the problem is, if you are limiting your argument to paywall related issues and restricting an AI from analyzing it, maybe it could work out. And there is an economic justification for that. At that level, you can sue. But certain content which is openly available, for that you need to see what kind of inputs are expected. Maybe at a level of search results and finding something, you can restrict an AI company, but you can't take away their processing capability. Because as a business model, OpenAI would be deeply affected because they need the data effectively, which means you will process, but you will not give the
But
identified part.
even if you
Yeah.
stop even if you stop the paid wall, I think it's going to drastically reduce the impact of what AI can deliver.
No, no. So I'm saying you can still.
What's your take? Do you think it should be? I'm saying, do you think the input data should be open sourced, even if it's paid? Do you think that should? Where do you stand on that?
Well, in my view, it should be open source because knowledge has to be. But then again, I'm saying if a company can process it, You process it, no problem. Nobody's stopping you. But you don't show it in your results. You do analysis. You process. You don't show exactly what have you processed. Which is to say, I say, oh my god, this NYT article is paywalled. I want to see what's written. I mean, I would never ever read NYT articles. They don't have any content. But let us say I read a Washington Post article which is paywalled. And I say, oh, you know what? This content is paywalled by the Indian Express or Washington Post. Could you please tell me what it is? That should not be told. But yes, if I'm asked, okay, what's the context? That can be done. But even there of course is a legal problem that paraphrasing rights could be a new paradigm which could come in. Companies will say, why are you paraphrasing my paywalled content? But again, I think, how much will you stop a certain form of computational innovation or capability? Because at some level these companies will come at you. That's how search engine optimization through Bing works, and it's very powerful. So I think, it's a fascinating question. I'm all for open source. I think information should be available publicly, because all these industries in Springer and Scopus. I mean, imagine a researcher has to pay 50,000 rupees to publish a paper, and a customer has to buy 3,000 rupees, pay 3,000 rupees to read a paper, download it. Why 3,000 rupees? I mean, some form of accessibility, and don't say profits, because the peer reviewer doesn't get any profit. The researcher doesn't get any profit who is an author. Okay. The university doesn't get any profits. Who gets the profits? The publisher. So it's a stupid industry. That's why the publishing industry is rattled right now due to AI. And of course, fake content is a different issue. Writing outputs based on that's a different issue. But you get my point, right? That so I'm all for open source. I think it should be open source, because a point of saturation will come, which will then allow us to regulate these AI companies, which with much better solution, which is to say, you process anything you want to, but you need to keep a criterion, and you need to ensure that you are not misleading, and you're not causing any problems. At some level you can't stop these companies, but at some point you can ensure that while they process, they remain ethical enough. That you can do.
So, coming to the last aspect of our conversation, any regulatory and policy framework is as good as its regulator who will help implement it. So, what are you proposing? Are you proposing a ministry of AI, or are you proposing a different secretariat within the Ministry of IT? Who will be that watchdog who will help enforce this regulation? What is the AI task force that you're suggesting?
So I am suggesting an independent statutory body like the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, or like the RBI. It has to be an independent authority of sorts. RBI is a different thing. It's a bank. It's a central bank of India. That's a different issue altogether. But I'm saying we need an independent regulator for AI, and I'm not saying it because of electoral politics or something like that. I'm just saying it from a very practical point of view. I just think that while for the data protection law, you needed an authority which is kind of under the government in certain ways. For AI, you can have an independent authority, because even in the case of the Reserve Bank of India, while everyone is praising the fintech industry for payments, which is great, I love UPI. The problem which I find is that RBI can't handle everything. Now, recently, just some news came, and I'll tell you. Actually, imagine for a moment, the RBI thought that they should have, they should offer servers for the digital public goods which are created by fintech companies. Why should the Reserve Bank get into this? I don't find any logical premise to this. It's not a political issue, it's a policy problem. If there were a UPA government, even they would have done this thing, because the bureaucrats suggest these things. It's not the politicians who think this way. So technically, I don't think it's a political problem. It's a policy thinking problem. You do not need to do certain things. You do not. Okay. For creating a startup ecosystem, offering services like server and all that is a different thing altogether. But for digital public goods, when you're partnering with the fintech companies, If you're offering a server facility at a permanent level, it is a bit of an issue, because then it doesn't stop. You will be like the it's like the simple problem if every libertarian economic person in India says my bab state. So you can't be a my bab state for fintech as well, right? So for AI also.
So would you say a consortium, a private consortium of AI experts, would that be then in that case they are regulating themselves, right? That will that be effective? So how should this watchdog be structured? Like who, what would it be? Would it be under the ministry or would it just be
So
private?
it would be a statutory body is a government body. It's just independent, which is to say that it is a government body. It has a statute. Okay, you need an act, like the Bar Council of India, or the Medical Pharmacy Council of India, right? Or the kind of like an AIMS kind of it. But again, AIMS is a university as well. It's a hospital as well. So I'm not getting on universities and hospitals, but kind of like an institution which has its own independent authority, like the Competition Commission of India. The Competition Commission is also under the Corporate Ministry. Okay, sorry, the Finance Ministry, and even this one would be somehow under the Ministry of IT, like the TRAI. It is under the Department of Telecom. But the people who are chairing it need to have a lot of autonomy. You could have a judge, or you could have a minister, or you could have a nodal secretary from the Ministry of IT as a chairperson or a member. That's perfectly fine. Kind of like a task force. They already have a model with the Digital India Corporation and the National E-Governance Division. Mr. Abhishek Singh leads it. So they can have an independent statutory authority, which will be a government authority. But then again, I think even if they go with something with some more executive control, I am fine with that for now. But it should not be like you give it completely to a whole ministry only. Keep it to a body which is connected to a ministry, attached to a ministry. But as you asked about a consortium of companies, I think, well, I'm trying to definitely make a consortium of MSMEs who are into digital and AI through my work at Indian Society of Artificial Intelligence and Law. That is a self regulatory effort, a private effort to help and support AI companies and digital companies in India who really want to make a living and who really want to be a part of the digital India ecosystem. That's a different self-regulatory effort I'm trying to do. What I'm saying is that you can have an independent authority, a statutory authority under a law, or within the law, you just can ensure it to be under a ministry per se. There's no problem. It will be anyways under a ministry. But how much control you give is the issue. Keep it independent, but then have a robust mandate. That's why we named it the India AI Development and Regulation Council. The reason is because of the whole hype about the India AI initiative by the Ministry of IT and NASCOM. So I said, fine, India AI is a good name. And since Prime Minister Modi said AI means America and India, of course, we are having a great relationship with the Americans on even digital and AI. So, nothing bad with that. That regulatory body could also coordinate with Niti Aayog. So, America plus India and also artificial intelligence, both of it could be achieved in the most sustainable ways from a regulatory standpoint.
So yeah, I mean, I can see your consortium also working as a pressure group to kind of improve and change regulations with such a statutory body. Probably it has a we have an AI commissioner who reports into the minister of IT. So something like that. So there will be an ecosystem of companies, private consortiums who kind of act as a pressure group or a lobbying group, and then the government has its own regulatory body. And I think in that sense the ecosystem will be more
Yes.
complete, because there are two aspects to it. There are certain I've seen this like some big tech capitalists, and I am pro capitalist, but certain big tech people uh, also want to regulate because they don't want other smaller mid-sized companies and competition that can emerge in AI and take away their competitive advantage. So sometimes they may want regulation which stops others from entry, and this is also a worry, because a true capitalist would want a free market so that newer players can come up with newer products and solutions. The worry is big tech taking over AI and making it a monopoly. So I think that is also a challenging area that such a statutory body should definitely address with immediate concern. So is there anything you're suggesting to ensure that competition remains free and fair?
So it's a justified question, and I'll tell you, I'm also concerned about the role of big tech because both Indian and foreign, funnily, foreign simply because of their invasive nature, the way American laws work, and China. I mean, we don't have those Chinese companies anymore, but Americans, yes. India, well, the problem is with the key companies. I'll not name anyone. I think the problem with them is they're kind of like, first of all, a workforce problem and then a quality of delivery problem, which is why, I mean, I'm not going to say they're going to stop innovation because they can't, but because it's just not going to happen right now. I mean, I can give you an example. Organizations like NASCOM have been lobbying the government for so much long time about an AI regulation and all that stuff. I have not seen a single outcome on it. Just an India AI related report came in, which is an expert report in November. If you read the 180-page report, then accept the semiconductor part of it, which again is the best way forward. As the Prime Minister himself said yesterday in the India Today interview, we are 30 years late for the semiconductor revolution. Leave the semiconductor part, it's perfectly fine. For data management and other things, I think there are some problems which are arising, and the report tries to address it, but it's not convincing enough because there is no open feedback based engagement from the industry. With the government, it's a different issue. With the government, it's a problem which happens in New Delhi more often. It's like the Kashmir issue. Before 2014, there was a lack of mobility to understand as to what to do for the Kashmir issue. Everyone was saying intellectual problem and all that. The honorable prime minister thought, no, it's a political problem. It's a insurgency problem. Sorry for the pronunciation, and therefore let's just make it happen. Even with West Asia, we were like, okay, Israel or Palestine. We were like, both. Why not? We are against terrorism, but we can have Ramallah as well as Jerusalem together. So I think it's a problem of mobility from the government, but they have very good intentions. Let me repeat, they have great intentions. It is just people from the lobbies in the industry who are not prepared for it. Okay. And a lot of stuff is being said in the media, from tech to business to political media. Political media, as always, is clueless intellectually and personally because they don't understand how technology affects or anything, which is also the economics debate. They don't understand how economy works. So I think the point that you're making is that yes, it's a worry that new players might be discouraged. But then again, I am seeing that the IITs and certain institutions are having centers of excellence, and they're trying to help AI startups come in India. Even the management colleges are trying to do that. Then the ball goes to the major industry. How will the investors react? How will they support? The government is already done with offering a. They're starting to offer a compute infrastructure for AI, which is great because you need a compute infrastructure at an affordable cost to create the technology. That's a great move. But how will we ensure that more new players come up? Is a very important question which has still not been solved, and it's an industry problem more than a government problem, which is why I think they're not coming up with a regulation so fast. A whole lobbying stuff was happening. Same was happening with the data protection law. There were 80 sections, 88 sections or something. A lot of confusion was there, and while there were some very good intentions, certain things were not being cleared by the bureaucrats, and certain things were not being supported by the big tech and the Indian tech industry. So there was a tension, which is why it was reduced to some 26 sections, which I wholeheartedly support. I think the new Data Protection Act is a much better way to start with. Let's see what guidelines come in. So
Great. With that, we come to the end of today's show. I would like to thank you, Abhivardhan, for this because this is a very important topic, a much needed topic on which larger discussion needs to happen amongst the youth and the change makers in India. And your initiative, which is certainly a very bold and adventurous one, very futuristic, and hopefully, you know, considerations are made from it, and we do develop a very structured, well thought out policy guideline and regulatory framework in India for AI, because the future is AI. I truly believe that. But how it gets used and deployed is very, very key to our success. So, yeah, definitely. If we can access the policy guideline that you have, if there is any link, would definitely share it in the episode show description, so that people can see it. Is there anything else you would like to say?
Well, to conclude, I would just say that people can actually go to aiact.in, so aiact.in, and they can actually look at the draft strategy and the draft bill. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to be with you. More sessions to go, more talks to happen. So yeah, thank you.
So, yeah, with that, we come to the end of today's show, guys. Please don't forget to like, comment, and share, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, signing off.